when the Fed might cut.
Deal with it.
Next month. On Wall Street, ahead of that, stock futures.
Here we go.
I'm Dave Anthony, and this is Fox News.
Lawrence County depends on WDXE News, on the air since 1951. This is The Legend. 105.3, 95.3, WDXE.
We've made it to Friday, and it's time for Bulletproof Estate Planning, again with Stan Pierchoski. How are you, bud?
It is, and good morning, Jeff. I am fine. How about you?
Beautiful morning this morning.
Yeah, 60 degrees when I woke up.
Yeah, nice.
Nice and cool.
Have a good week?
Yeah, we had a very busy week. We have certain weeks where we do signings of our trusts, and this was a signing week. And I think we had 9 of them in a week, which actually was a record.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's great.
That was quite a bit. But we're trying to catch up from the last seminar, and we're on track. And we got another seminar coming up, but it's about a month out. It's what's the 22nd? Yeah,
It is the 22nd.
The next month, the next seminar we're doing is here, WLX, on the 20th of September. So we're right at a month away.
Yeah, not far.
Yeah, and we call that Wills, Trusts, and Nursing Home, and it's that's what we talk about. And of course, we talk about stuff here on the radio station and some of the other stations that I do. We get a little more deep dive into it. The seminar is it's about an hour long, or my presentation is an hour to an hour and 10 minutes long or so. And then they usually stick around for, usually at least an hour answering questions afterward. So if you want to come to one of my seminars, like I said, we call them Wills, Trust, and the Nursing Home. This next one's on Saturday, September the 20th. And on Saturday seminars, we always do at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I try to start as promptly as I can. And, you can just call the office and RSVP and get on the list. And we've already got quite a few on there.
That's great.
And I don't really worry about attendance because we got a big venue here.
Yes.
And we don't have to worry about, we used to have a place up in Franklin that only held so many. We had to,
right.
Sometimes I hate to put people on a waiting list for stuff like that. But, here in the theater over in Pulaski, and there's a place over in Marshall County we go, they're usually pretty big. We don't have to worry about that. Got plenty of seating.
Plenty of seating.
So.
Good, comfortable place here to do this.
Yeah,
this is really good.
The air conditioner works.
That's right.
Which, maybe you might not have to work too hard anymore or at least for this.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to be a month from now, but, that far into September, it's usually starting to give up a little bit. So, yeah, that's if you want to come to that, just call my office at Pierchoski Estate Law, Pierchoski Elder Law, 931-363-7222, and get on that list. Just need the head count. That's all. It's pretty loose RSVP. I probably shouldn't even call it RSVP, but just let us know you're coming. Yeah. Usually if you let us know what you're coming, you'll get a call from somebody the day before. Just a reminder that the seminar's the next day. We don't pester you if you're on the list. Well, hey, this is a call-in show.
That's right.
We had some calls last week, and that's great, because I really, I like it when people call in. And I like to hear what you have to say, and I like to hear the questions you ask, because it helps me be where you're at, where the rubber meets the road, the real life experience that people are experiencing, so we can talk about it, especially if there's a problem area or something, we can talk about it. There's a lot of solutions out there, and I deal with this on a daily basis in my office when I do estate planning. Every family is unique, and it just always amazes me the unique issues that come in the door and that you have to deal with. It's almost fun. I mean, it is fun for me.
Yeah.
I was having an issue just the other day that I came out and told the gals. I said, "Man, I'm working on a thing. I think I got the answer to it." It was just a lot of fun getting there.
Yeah, interesting work. It's very interesting work.
But if you did want to call in, it's 931-766-9393.
You are correct.
I don't have to keep looking at the number because I forget it. I always get the 762 and the 766. I can never remember.
It is 766.
766-9393.
9393. That's right.
Yeah, call in and ask a question. You don't have to ask a question about the subject I'm talking about. But I would at least limit the estate planning. If you want to call in and ask what my favorite color is, that's probably. but it can be something that we've talked about before, or something we never talked about. If you have a concern, ask about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, there's the world of estate plannings. All of that is an interesting field, no doubt. And like you said, it's very unique to each family.
It can be. It sure can be. I mean, there's some things that are pretty regular and routine that people do, just because people have the same basic property. Everybody's got a piece of land, some money in the bank, retirement plans, stuff like that. But some, a lot of people have some more unique assets or more unique circumstances. And, there's you know, there's always a challenge dealing with some of that stuff. I won't go into the challenge I went through just this week, but, because it requires a lot of groundwork to get to the point of what the challenge was. But I had something else I wanted to talk about today anyway, so but
Yeah.
I'll bring that up.
Okay.
You know,
All right.
we always like to keep people updated. We had another 10-care approval.
Oh, yeah.
And this was one, you know, you hear me talk about when we do this, it's just doggone unpredictable. You know? And this was one that was pretty straightforward, but there was a couple of oddities in it, I'm gonna say. And, you know, it was about 4 months. You know, approval used to take about 3 pre-COVID. And now it seems to be hovering, the norm seems to hover more around 4. I'm not sure why, but it does.
Yeah.
So right around 4 months, we got the call, or not the call, we got the letter, you know, they gave approval. And so if I remember right, that case was, you know, it was just a what we call a married case. It was a institutionalized spouse and a community spouse, which institutionalized is the one in the facility.
Right.
Community spouse is what we call, I call the healthy one that's home. You know, that's the one that's not in care. And those are a whole set of rules when you're married versus when you're single. And the only thing that was about it was there was some, you know, during the process, they will usually reach out and ask some questions. You know, we send them some data, we send them the application, we explain some of the things that we do, and inevitably we get what's called an information request.
Yes.
Now, usually the first one is usually boilerplate. You know, they want the same things all the time, because what that means is they just picked it up, they just assigned it to a caseworker, and they always ask for the same thing up front. And so we give it to them. But there was a second request about some assets that got their attention, and they wanted some more explanation, wanted to see some more documentation on it. So we put it together, and we already had it available, and sent it off to them. You know, it sounded like it was something they were scratching their head about, in a way. You know,
Yeah.
and you know, about 2 or 3 weeks after that, then we just issued the approval. So it worked out pretty good. And it's always a good time for the office, because we get to call the family. Because, you know, you put yourself in the shoes of the family. They've been sitting here for 4 months, wondering, you know, are they going to get approved? Are they going to get approved? Or what's going to happen? And I have to tell them, I have to tell the families that, look, we get these inappropriate denials relatively often. You know, but I tell them, I often say I can't guarantee a result. I'm not allowed, you know, ethically to say I can guarantee this result, but I can talk about my track record, you know, and I've never failed to get anybody eligible yet, and I've been successful in fair hearings 100%. And I'm not patting myself on the back. We're successful at that because of the way we do it. And so, but it takes them a while.
Yeah.
I can't speed them up. And so the family, you know, I've got all the cases to think about. They've only got that one to think about. And so it's on their mind, and they wonder, because I get calls, have we heard anything yet? And it's like, you know, yeah, you'll be the first one that I call when I hear something, good or bad.
Yeah.
But I just say, no, you know, this is typically the way it is. Getting ready for eligibility, we call it hurry up and wait.
Yes.
Up until filing the application, we're hurrying up, we're going fast we can to manipulate the assets so that will be eligible, or from changing them from countable to non-countable,
Yes.
and doing all this stuff, because usually the people are private paying, and so we're trying to go as fast as we can, because
Right.
we want to avoid how much bleeding to death is going on
Right.
financially. And then we file the application, and boom, everything just sort of seems to come to a complete stop.
Yes.
So I always tell people, you know, we all this hurry up and wait, now's the wait.
Now's the wait.
And every once in a while, they'll say, could you please send us this, that, and something else? And we do. And so, anyway, it's always fun to call them and say, hey, got some good news. You know, they got the approval today, and they're just all so thankful and relieved. They're just relieved, you know, that
Yeah.
they came through. And so, they always, the whole office always tells me that I need to make that call. I mean, there's a lot of people help do that. It's not
Yeah.
just me. I've got a 4-person crisis team.
Yeah.
And they do a lot of that work, but you know, they report to me, and I oversee that, and I'm pretty much the one that picks and plans the strategies. But the group deals with the nuts and bolts. And there's a lot of them throughout the process. So
Having gone through that
Yeah.
with my father-in-law, and knowing what I know now, I can't imagine that everybody doesn't get turned down on the front end, especially if you're doing it yourself. You know, and you haven't ever done it, and you just fill that thing out and send it in. I can see where they're going to turn everyone like that down every time.
you know, I don't know if I talked about this last week or not, but I have talked about it before.
Yeah.
Let me just exactly on point of what you're saying. Okay, if you have any concern about long-term care and you've Googled it or if you've gone online and kind of tried to learn about it, you're going to run into many statements on many websites that talk about the fact that if you can be over-resourced. What that means is you got too much money. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Or not money, but too much assets, right?
Right.
And then they'll say you can only have $2,000 before you can be eligible.
Right.
Now, I can, I'm telling you, it doesn't mean what it says. It doesn't mean you need to have $2,000, but let's just assume that's what it means.
Right.
Just for discussion. So if you have to have less than $2,000 before you can get approved for TennCare, right? That's what it says. You don't believe me? Just type it into a Google search engine and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Right.
Now, if you had to be below $2,000 to be eligible, okay, can you name to me anybody that doesn't have $2,000?
It's very
I
difficult.
mean, I'm in my office on the square, and there's there's a guy.
Either
that comes in-
$2,000 or $2,000 in assets or whatever.
There's a
Yeah.
guy that comes around and picks cans out of the trash. And sometimes we put our cans in a bag, and when I see him, I say, "Hey, here's all the cans." Because I drink a lot of those. Not a lot, but I like to drink those fizzy. I call them, my daughter calls them fizzy water.
Oh, okay.
My granddaughter.
Yeah.
A Bublé or a LaCroix or whatever
Right.
those are. Just carbonated water. And so we generate a lot of cans, and we throw them in like a recycle bin
Yeah.
that we have at the office. And when I'll see them, I'll just give them to them because they take them and go get some, I mean, you can cash them in and get some money, but it's too much trouble. I don't want, I'm too busy to do it, so I give it to them. He probably has $2,000. I mean, it's really, in today's life, it's not a large sum of money.
Yes, really not,
And
sadly.
so if that's the case, how can there be, how come when you go to the nursing homes, they're full?
Yeah.
If everybody's over this limit, they're full, So it doesn't really mean that. It means $2,000 of countable assets, which is a category.
Right.
And I've talked about that many times. So, you can have a ton of property and still be eligible for TennCare as long as your countable assets are below $2,000. It doesn't mean $2,000 to your name. It does not mean that.
Well, for the average guy like me, before I know before I knew what I know now,
Sure.
I would have never figured that out.
And that's exactly why I hold the seminars, because it's the first time people hear that.
Yeah.
And I usually see people's faces just light up when I say that, because once I say it, it makes sense to you. Everybody thinks, oh, holy heck, that's an awful small amount of money.
Yeah.
We got to spend down. Spend
Right.
down doesn't mean what you think it means either.
Right.
So you got to understand it's a category of asset. It's a countable asset. Now,
Right.
if you don't understand when I say countable asset, the word countable, just substitute the words available for the cost of care asset, and then it makes a little more sense. So if you have, let's say you got $10,000 in the bank, well, that's all available to you for you to pay your care, because you just have to go to the bank and take it out.
Right.
Now, if it's in a format where you can't get it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then it's not countable. It's not available to you for the cost of care.
Right.
And we can juggle assets and put them in that category. It doesn't mean you can't use them or actually get to them. They just make them unavailable.
That's
Now,
right.
that wasn't the topic I was going to talk about. I'll bring that up again, another one. But I think we probably just talked about that a few weeks ago.
And we
were
have.
talking about the Asset Protection Trust, which does exactly that.
Right.
It changes countable assets to non-countable assets the moment you put them in the trust. And then what all that really means is when they calculate your countable assets, after you send your application in, which is what they do, all those things are not in the equation. And they're big ticket items. The house and other real estate, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, and retirement accounts, and maybe investment accounts and stuff like that. Tons of money that we can get, take out of that equation and still get you eligible. So, and the reason behind that is most people, they work hard all their life and they want to save their nest egg. They don't want to have exhausted. They want it for retirement purposes, and they would like to leave it to a subsequent generation. And I don't blame them. That's why I have mine too. So
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
Well, our health is something that is paramount to all of us, and we know how important our good health is. And as we age, we have more and more health issues. And I was just listening to a gentleman not too long ago. I mean, this past week, he was talking about how that we will spend more probably on our health in the last year of our life than all the rest of the years combined.
that sounds very logical.
And for a lot of people, if you're not prepared for that, it can eat up all of your assets.
Yeah, it sure
So
can.
that's what we're talking about here when we do this kind of planning.
I had an annual physical.
Yeah.
And they had to go someplace to get the blood work and stuff like that. And they tell you to bring your list of medications. So I get there. One of the first questions they ask is, did you bring your list of medications? I said, well, I don't have a list of them because I don't take any.
Yeah.
And that really throws people off. I mean,
That, you're very, very fortunate.
I just don't have any to take. And they say, and it's like, you don't take any medicines. I said, no, I don't take any medicines. They say, what, you don't have any prescription drugs that you take? It's like, okay, this is the third time now. No, I don't have any medicines that I take.
Yeah.
Not prescription ones. And they seem puzzled. It's like they have this blank on the form and they don't have anything to write down.
It's such a big part of most of our lives,
And
that we're taking some kind of prescriptions.
And I finally say, well, I take some supplements,
Yeah.
some vitamin supplements. Then they say, oh, what kind? I said, well, I take this, So they write it down. Then they seem happy. It's almost like you gotta have something.
You gotta
to
have
fill in that
something to
blank.
fill in the blank. Yeah, yeah.
And I'm fortunate about that. I'm a big believer in, I like to say this. I like to say that God gave us all a body that will heal itself
Yeah.
if you just get out of the way
Yeah.
and let it. Now, how do you get in the way of healing? The food you eat, the stuff you do, just the typical general health things, I mean,
Yeah.
you eat pre-processed foods, I mean,
Yeah.
you're not gonna feel good, and that gets harder and harder to do in the year 2025, Back up 50 years, it was a lot easier to do because you just could buy stuff farm fresh and stuff.
Sure,
That's why I always love those farm markets. We have one on the square in Pulaski every Saturday morning.
Yeah.
My wife goes to that almost all the time and gets stuff. And,
Yeah.
And it only lasts a week, but we just get it the next week.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's not what we're going to talk about. But we could talk about that the whole hour.
Oh, I'm sure.
But there's nothing like feeling healthy, and you take it so for granted, and that when you really take it for granted is when you don't feel good.
That's true.
It's like when you don't feel good for 3 days, those are the 3 longest days.
Yeah.
But you can feel good for 30 days and you don't even think about it.
Right,
But
right.
So you need to count blessings any chance you
That
get.
is
That's
true.
for sure.
That is true.
Anyway, one thing I want to talk about is there's a question or a topic that comes up all the time. And I'm sure I've mentioned it here on the radio station, but I want to go over it again because it's important for people to understand. And we talk about it a little bit at the seminar, so I'll give you a little sneak peek. And that is, there's a lot of confusion people have between the two things of Medicare and Medicaid. You probably remember me talking about it before. And when I do what I do for estate planning, we do very little associated with Medicare.
Right.
I mean, it comes in every now and then, but not really the application of it or how it works. But sometimes it has a slight effect on what we do. But
Okay.
Medicare and Medicaid, people often think they're two names for the same thing, or they think they're one and the same. And I'm telling you, they are not. They are extremely different from each other. They are
Yeah.
way different on what they do, and they are way, way different on what they pay for. Okay, so we don't want to make a mistake here. Medicare is it's a federal program, and it's insurance, and it acts like insurance. That's exactly what it is. A good way to understand Medicare is before you turned 65, you had something like, I don't know, Blue Cross Blue Shield or
Right.
whatever, and that was your medical insurance, right? And you pay premiums, and you have a deductible. So if you break your leg and go to the hospital, you pay a deductible, and then you pay. A lot of times you pay 20% of the first $20,000, and after that it pays 100%, right? Or whatever it is, and that's insurance, and it works like insurance. Well, when you get Medicare, you're 65, you're eligible for Medicare, and it is the same thing. It's insurance. Now, everybody gets this Part A, which is the doctors and hospitalization, and then everybody gets Part B, but they have to pay for Part B on a sliding scale based on your income.
Yes.
And then people often buy supplements. And there's a blue million supplements out there, but you buy supplements that will pay for the stuff that Part B doesn't pay for.
Yes.
Okay, so and you can get the prescription supplements as well as just that's what you hear when you call it Medicare Advantage. There's a lot of them out there, and so but it works like insurance. It has nothing to do with long-term care. If you go into a long-term care facility, we always tell people keep your Medicare, because if you're in a nursing home, you fall down and break your leg, and you go to the hospital, that's an insurable event. Has nothing to do with long-term care. If you get sick or if you get hurt, that sort of thing, that's insurable. So you want to keep that. Medicaid which pays long-term care. It doesn't pay insurance. it pays for your care, meaning it pays the facility for taking care of you.
Yes.
It's a different thing, and that's all it does, is pay long-term care. Now, Medicare, Medicare is different in all 50 states. Our version is called TennCare. You hear me talk about that all the time.
Right.
TennCare is our version of Medicaid, and it's different in Alabama. It's different in Georgia. It's different in Kentucky. There's 50 states. They all have their own set of rules. Some are similar, but they're all different. And so and the TennCare is the only organization that pays for long-term care here in Tennessee.
Yes.
Now the confusion comes from this. Medicare, and I'm going back to Medicare. Medicare, the insurance will pay if you have what is called a spell of illness. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Spell of illness. So let's just say you fall down and break your hip. So you go to the hospital.
Yes.
And you're in the hospital. If you're in the hospital for like 3 days, or what they call 3 consecutive days, or what they call the 2 midnight rule. So if you're there for 3 consecutive days, and they fix your hip, they put a pin in it, or you get a new hip, or just whatever the medical solution for that is, then you have to rehabilitate from that. I mean, if you got a new hip, you got to learn how to walk, use it going upstairs and downstairs. You know what I mean? You got to rehab. And so they will discharge you from the hospital to a care facility, like a nursing home.
Yeah.
And that's for you to rehabilitate from whatever your spell of illness was. And one of the main reasons for that is it's thousands of dollars a day to rehab in a hospital, and they don't do it because they need the beds, but it's only hundreds of dollars a day to rehab at in a care facility.
Right.
And so they will send you there, and Medicare will pay that. Okay, but Medicare is only paying rehabilitation. Now, rehabilitation is not long-term care. But a lot of times rehabilitation turns into long-term care, and this is where some of I call it Medicare confusion, because a lot of people will say, well, I've got Medicare and I've got a rider that pays for long-term care.
Yeah.
I always tell people to bring that to me and I'll take a look at it, and I'm telling you right now, I'll point out to them where it doesn't do that. There is no such thing. There is such a thing as long-term care insurance that you can buy from private providers,
Yes.
like Nationwide or something like that. But there's no such thing as something that goes with Medicare that pays for it.
Yeah.
Now, here's where the confusion is. When people get sick and they get discharged to rehab into a facility, you're in a long-term care facility being taken care of by long-term care people, but you're not in long-term care.
Yes.
You are in rehabilitation.
You're a different status.
So let's think about how that works. And Medicare will pay for it. Now, they pay for it a funky way, meaning, and here's another confusion. There's a statute that says Medicare will pay for up to 100 days of rehabilitation. Everybody hones in on the word 100 days. People call me and say, Dad's over at the facility over here. He's on day 62 of his 100 days. That 100 days is not in the bag. That is not guaranteed. And you're not the one that decides it.
Yes.
Medicare decides it. And it's based on your rehabilitation.
Right.
So let's say you do break your leg. You go to the hospital, you get a pin put in it, and they discharge you to a facility, get your gait back, learn how to walk on it, negotiate stairs, whatever they do. And let's say after 30 days, you're walking like a champ, you got it down, you back to good as new kind of thing.
Yeah.
The doctors report every week to Medicare when you're rehabilitation. And they're going to say, hey, this person rehabilitated, Medicare will stop paying. Why? Because Medicare pays for rehabilitation, and you're done. Okay? So they're going to stop paying because you've rehabilitated. It's over with. Now, suppose you go in there, let's say you have a stroke. This is a good example. You have a stroke, and sometimes, a lot of times you have these strokes that you don't ever really recover from,
Right.
or at least not fully. So you have a stroke, you go in, they give you the clot busters or do whatever they do, and then they send you to a facility to rehab.
Right.
Because maybe one side it's not the autonomy or the motor reflexes need some PT, right? So you go into the facility and let's say you're 60 days into it or something, and the doctors are making reports every week, and let's say the doctors will say, okay, well, we've done PT and we've done what we do for the last 3 weeks in a row,
Right.
and the patient has not progressed any. So basically what they're saying is this is as good as it's going to get.
Yes.
He's been progressing, and now we sort of hit this plateau, and with 3 weeks of the same thing, and he's just not getting any better.
Okay.
So this is going to be, now, Medicare will stop paying. Why? Because Medicare pays for rehabilitation, and he's rehabilitated. Now, he's not back to 100%, but medically they're saying he's not going to get any better. So he's not going to pay for it anymore.
Okay.
That's 2 examples.
Yeah.
Now, let's suppose you go into it, let's go back to the broken leg or the stroke, you know, you're in it and they come to you and say, okay, Jeff, it's time for your PT.
Yeah,
And you say, you know what, I just feel terrible today, I don't feel good, I just don't think I can do the PT, because PT is no fun. I mean,
sure.
I mean, nobody ever said PT was easy. I mean, it's
Yeah.
painful. It's painful. Nobody really looks forward to it. You look forward to the end result, of course, but it's it's work, and you're just not up for it. I mean, literally and truly not up for it.
Right.
Well, I mean, you only get 2 or 3 of those. I can't remember how many, because those are considered refusals. I mean, they don't expect you to say, hey, I'm having a bad day, I'm going to skip PT, and that on their bill. And so they will terminate payment if you refuse like 2 or 3, I can't remember, I think it's 3.
Okay.
But don't hold me to that, but it is a small finite number. And now why do they stop paying in that situation? Well, once again, for the 3rd time, they only pay rehabilitation, and you're not participating in the rehabilitation, so they're not going to pay.
Right.
Now the 4th example of them terminating is, let's say you're in there, let's say you're in a wreck and you got all kind of multiple injuries, and you're rehabilitating, you're coming along, you're progressing every day, you're rehabilitating, but you get to day 100 and you're still not to 100%, okay? Now, you get to day 100, they're going to terminate. Why? Because they pay for rehabilitation and they put a cap on it. If you haven't rehabilitated 100 days, they're just going to stop paying and you're on your own. You know, they consider that enough for most cases, and if they time out, they absolutely positively do not pay for day 101. So if you're in long-term, if you're in a situation like a stroke victim and you rehabilitate and you get to the point of what the doctors are calling, this is as good as it's going to get, and that still is a level where you require care and help for some of the activities of daily living, and you're going to end up staying in the facility, then the billing literally transitions from Medicare rehabilitation to TennCare long-term care. And so the Medicare confusion that I'm getting at is somebody's in a facility for long-term care, being taking care of people for long-term care. It looks like long-term care,
Right.
but it's not long-term care. It's rehabilitation. And so there's a big difference between the two. Now, it's different the way they pay. What they'll do is they will pay first 20 days is 100%.
Okay.
Day 21 through day 100, you are responsible for, let's see, in 2025, you're responsible for $209.50. And the average is about $330 a day, so whatever that is minus that is what they'll pay.
Right.
So you're paying the 2/3, right?
Right.
You're paying well, just right at 2/3. But most people are usually not out of pocket that money because their Medicaid Part B will pay, and their supplement, almost all supplements pick up that rehabilitation bill.
Right.
So they're never out of pocket. So they feel like they're there and Medicare is paying the whole thing. And Medicare's not. They're paying the whole thing for the first 20 days, but after that it's a split. It's a heavy split in their favor, not yours. But these supplements, I think all of them pay that. I mean, if they didn't pay that, nobody would buy it because it's a very common feature. And if you can't compete in the market if you're not going to do that.
Right.
So when the patient themselves don't see a bill, so it's like their Medicare is paying for all of this. So they're confused and say Medicare pays for long-term care, and they're not, because it's not. You have to just understand the difference between the rehabilitation and the long-term care, and it's confusing. Now, I know it's confusing, but there's a way to make that work for us sometimes, because if we have somebody, let's say there's somebody that's coming, they're in there and they've been there for 60 days, and all signs indicate that they're probably that when they get done with their rehabilitation, whether it's 100 days or less, everything looks like they're going to have to stay in care because they aren't getting to the point where they can take care of themselves. Right. So that is a opportunity for us to get somebody eligible for TennCare, without worrying about doing the private paying thing. Because as soon as that Medicare runs out, the first place the nursing home is going to get a hold of you. As a matter of fact, they'll get a hold of you when the letter comes out saying they're going to terminate, and want to know how they're going to get paid. And you have to private pay that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have long-term care insurance, that will help. But few people do, so I'm not going to interject that.
Yeah.
But if you have it, that's a great tool. Hang on to it. And that'll pay some of it. That'll actually pay a big chunk of it, but not all of it. But if you don't have that, like 90% of folks do or don't, you are stuck for the whole private pay bill. That's $330 a day. That's $10,000 a month. So if we can, when we get people eligible, we have to manipulate the assets. We have to change them from countable to non-countable so that we can protect them and keep them in the family. But that takes time. It takes a couple of weeks. I mean, it depends on the assets, if the assets are, simple posture, easily accessible, then we can do it quickly.
Yeah,
But, if you got a investment account or an IRA and you're dealing with these insurance companies, like Vanguard or Fidelity or whoever it is, you have to work through them.
right.
And they're not the jiffiest people in the world sometimes. Some more than others, that's for sure. Because if you have your power of attorney, it says, hey, they call them up and they say, hey, I need to deal with my dad's brokerage account, or investment account.
Right.
Say it's an Edward Jones or Morgan Stanley or
Right.
Raymond James, whatever it is. And you say, I want to deal with it. And they're going to say, listen, we can't even talk to you. Are you a power of attorney? And you say, yes. Okay, please send us your power of attorney form. We need to look at it before we can talk to you.
Right.
So you send it to them and they say, give us 5 to 7 days to do that. So
Right.
5 to 7 days go by and you call them back and they say, okay, we got your power of attorney, we looked at it. What do you want to know about your dad's account? We approve that you are acting as his agent.
Yeah,
So a week has gone by and nothing's been done.
Right.
At least on our end.
yeah,
I challenge them to show me why it takes a week to look at these, but anyway, it does. And so you say, okay, I want to know what's in there, and I want to know what the surrender value is, and I want you to send me the cash surrender form so we can cash this thing out. We're going to turn it into something else. And I say,
Right.
okay, we will send you the forms. Usually they can email them. Say, okay. Then you fill in the forms, you send them, and they say, okay, give us, 1 to 2 weeks to process the forms, and you do.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, what do you want? You want us to cut you a check? And you say, yeah, send us a check. Okay, that takes another 7 to 10 days. Then when it gets to the bank, for some reason, banks now they put a hold on everything, including money orders, which blows my mind. And they hold it for a while before they'll consider it good funds.
Right.
So before you know it, we're into stuff like that a month. It's pretty easy to get that far. So things don't happen quickly, but if we are in this Medicare window where they're getting everything paid for,
Yeah.
if we can work in that window, that's a big advantage because we're getting all this done and not bleeding to death financially. So there's a big difference between the Medicare and the Medicaid, and you just need to understand it. Don't get confused and say, well, and whatever you do, if you think you're headed for or a loved one is headed for long-term care, don't cancel your Medicare. We still want to keep that because, like I said, if you have an accident, let's say you're not in the nursing home, you fall and break your leg,
yes,
you go, that's an insurable event, right? I mean, everybody would agree with that.
yeah,
You can make a claim on your insurance company. Because when you get there, they're going to say, who's your insurance? You give them your card, and they bill the insurance company.
right,
You just have to pay your deductible and stuff like that. Well, if you're in a nursing home and fall and break your leg, it's identical. It's still an insurable event. The nursing home's not going to sit there, set your leg or
Yeah.
slice it open and put a pin in to
Right.
put your femur bone back together or whatever they do. They're not going to do that. They're going to take it to the hospital.
Right.
The hospital does it. So it's identical. It is an insurable event. Long-term care is saying, hey, we don't do that. We take care of you as a long-term person as you live in this facility, and we do help you with the activities of daily living, those ADLs.
Right.
But we don't do surgery and stuff like that.
Right.
That's the hospital. So don't. I have some people say, well, if we're in long-term care, we just stop paying for Medicare and let it go so we can save that money? I said, no, absolutely
Not
not.
a
You
good
want to
idea.
keep it. You want to keep it. Because as you get older, like you said earlier, you fall more, you are susceptible more, and whatever. So you don't want to get rid of that. You want to keep it. Because, it pays a completely different program. I
absolutely.
mean, there are only 2 letters of the alphabet different. So, how can you possibly get them confused,
Yes,
right?
it is confusing. It is confusing until you've kind of been made aware of the two differences.
And another thing that you just have to remember is, we're in a pretty mobile society, but each state is different. I can't tell you how many times I have a seminar and I'm talking about some of the things that the TennCare does, and it'll get to the question and answer part, and somebody will say, hey, my brother's, he does this, and you said we can't do that. And I said, well, where's your brother live? He said, he lives in Ohio. I said, well, that's the answer because the rules are different in every state.
Right.
Where Medicare, it's the same everywhere.
Yes.
There's no state involvement in that. It's a federal Medicare Act, and it's the same everywhere. Now, the Federal Medicaid Act, which just turned 60 back here on July 31st.
Yeah, I remember us talking about
Yeah.
that.
The Federal Medicaid Act it allows the states to govern themselves as long as they stay within the confines of the federal act. I think I described it this way before, and I think it's a good example. Let's say you got this big bubble, okay?
Yeah.
The big bubble is called the Federal Medicaid Act.
Right.
Inside this big bubble are 50 little bubbles.
Yes,
Now, the 50 little bubbles can overlap each other some, right? I mean, like some states are similar.
Right.
Because they're all within the same confines, they're all within the same basic rules. But none of the 50 bubbles can escape the big bubble because you have to stay within those guidelines. But you're welcome to regulate your own guidelines like you want as long as you stay in the bubble.
Right.
Now, states that are similar, those little bubbles are overlapping a little bit.
right,
But they are all complete, they all are different. No two states are identical. But there are some that are very similar.
yes,
You know, we have states that are a maximum and minimum state for things like income. You have
Right.
a maximum or minimum. We have a range state, or we have a flat amount states, you know,
Right.
for income, and then resource rules are a little different too.
Right.
And so, but some of them are very similar, but they all have their own little nuances when it gets down to it. And some states are very different. You know, I often say there's stuff that they can do in Florida that I wish we could do here. A lot of stuff with real estate. You know
yes,
this thing down there called ladybird deeds, and I'm not going to get into it because we don't have it, so no sense confusing the issue.
Yeah.
But they treat the real estate in a very favorable way to the patient, and I wish we could do those here, but we don't, we can't. So until it changes, and it's not probably not going to. And then there's some states like Massachusetts or some of the New England states that are just, I'm so glad we don't do what they do, because it's just a nightmare trying to get eligible from what one of my colleagues tell me,
Yeah.
you know, some of the estate planning forums that I'm on. And so it's, you know, so they can be very different. And so ours are, I want to say probably middle of the road. I think, you know, the biggest problem I have is not so much with the rules, is following them.
yeah,
The rules are pretty good for us, just getting them to follow them sometimes is what's the hard part.
Exactly.
How it's administered, but. Anyway, that's that Medicare, Medicaid thing. Let that sink in a little. They are
good
not,
information.
They are not one and the same, and don't make that mistake, because you may think, here's the mistake I don't want you to make. You just don't do anything because you figure, you know, I got Medicare. It's good. If I go into this ABC nursing home over here, they're going to have to pay for everything.
Yeah.
And then you get there and you're in for a big surprise.
Yeah.
Where your family is. So don't. That's why I say it can be a pretty costly mistake, because you're thinking it's going to do something. And if you go on the internet, I don't know what, you know, you may usually that's misleading,
Yeah,
because people don't know. I mean, it's 60 years old and still don't understand it.
Yeah.
It just amazes me.
good information this morning, Stan.
So, yeah, but we talked briefly about that at the seminar, but I wanted to do a little deeper dive, because that's what these things are for.
You
So-
know, first step, and we've talked about this a lot, but first step for folks is to try to make the seminars.
I was just about to say, let's give the number again in case
Yeah.
anybody wants to call.
Well, we've got a regular on the line. Let's see what she's got on her mind this morning. Hey, good
Okay.
morning. How are you?
Teaching a graduate class or a college class. It's not a criticism, it's just a fact. And the people don't have the prerequisites a lot of times, because I heard a young woman, and she was highly educated and attractive, being interviewed on a program yesterday. And she was just talking about things like buying a car, buying a house. She says, we're not getting it from parents. And she's college educated. We're not getting it from parents. We're not getting it at school. And she says, people don't even know how to do those. And I think sometimes what Mr. Pierchoski is doing is great. It's almost trying to put it in information for dummies. Not that people are dumb. They've never had anything that led up to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, we don't know what we don't know.
And it's like young people, what amazes me, there is a magazine I go to, it's Market Watch, but I go to it for the stock market. But they have a section I put in inheritance. The young people that write in, and people you talk to, they think they have this inherent right to an inheritance.
Yeah.
They don't understand a thing about, they may not get an inheritance, but I just wanted to tell him, young people need wills and some of this stuff, but I appreciate, but one of the things you talked about last week, and I don't mean to, is you were talking about, or 2 weeks ago or something like that, you were talking about in Tennessee, adopted children and children were included. Would unborn children need to be specified, or is it just assumed if you, anytime I hear of a first responder dying and his wife is expecting and all this, I know in some states they specify unborn children. Does Tennessee do that, and is that something someone would have to put in extra? It doesn't affect me, I just thought it might affect somebody else.
All right. Thank you, Peggy. Very good. I'm not sure what to do with that one.
Well, I think I do. The first
Okay,
part, but I mean, I try very hard. Maybe and I guess I'm not successful sometimes, but my mind, I think about it on a different level. And the level I think about it on is pretty complicated. Because when you read through the rules, it is complicated.
Yes.
Yeah, you use a lot of legal terms like, jurisdiction, these countable assets and stuff like that.
Right, right.
But I try to bring it down into, the everyday understanding,
application.
because that's how you see it written on the internet, and that's how you see it when people talk amongst themselves.
Right.
I try to point out the inconsistencies of that. So I'll try to do better on that. I don't mean it to be a graduate class. I don't mean it to be so complicated you can't understand it. But sometimes, maybe anyway. Sometimes that's the only way you can explain it. But I appreciate that feedback because I don't want it to be. I'm not intending it to be over the head of anybody. I want to try to get it to where we understand the real life application of it, and what you're seeing and stuff like that. So
Sure, absolutely.
But the other thing toward the end of the question was more like people, young people think they have an entitlement to inheritance. That was one thing.
Well, yeah, I think
And there isn't, of course.
she was commenting on, I guess, kind of a societal issue.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
And there isn't an entitlement. There's not an entitlement, of course. I often tell people you can disinherit your children. You can't disinherit a spouse, but you can disinherit your children. And it happens a lot.
It happens a lot, but we do have quite a generation of folks that feel entitled to everything.
Well, that's right. But then the last part was the part about unborn children.
Yes.
And yes, we include that in wills and trust. And the way we kind of do it is, if you leave, let's say I have 3 kids, and I leave my property to my 3 kids.
Yes.
And there'll be some language. Let's just say it's easy, and it's a third, right? If I want to, there'll be language in that document, whether it's a will or a trust, it will say something like, if any of these beneficiaries, of these 3 beneficiaries, predeceases me. So
Yes.
we're talking about a child passing away before me.
Right.
So if I have a child that predeceases me, the thought process is, well, where does that third go?
Yes.
Okay, well, it goes where you say it goes. Okay, we have several choices you can do. The one she's talking about is called per stirpes, which is a Latin term. And again,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be grad school. I'm just saying that's what you'll see. That's the language you'll see in the will. What that means is that it will flow through the deceased child, the 1/3 will,
Yes.
and go evenly divided among that child's descendants. Now, the word descendants includes their lineal children and any lineal children they ever will have. So when you do a will or a trust, we are looking into the future,
Yeah.
or what I call what ifing. So there could be descendants that aren't born yet, and there probably are. So, but we want to include them, or the people normally want to include those.
Yeah.
So let's just say you leave it to your son, and your son is 30 years old, 35 years old, has 2 kids, probably expecting more than likely to have a 3rd or a 4th, but don't have them yet.
Yeah.
So you say in there, if he predeceases, his share goes to his children. Well, most people think if they got 2 kids, I want it to go to them. If they got 4 kids, I want it to go equally to them, right?
Right.
That's what most people do. There's other ways to do it, but so when we say descendants, that's not just, if it meant just your children, it would say just your children. It means your descendants, which are your children, and any future children that you have.
Wow.
And that includes adopted children.
Yes.
Because adopted children are legally your lineal descendants.
That's right.
You have a child, it's a bloodline child, right?
Right.
If you have a child that's not a bloodline child but adopted,
Yep.
that's by legal standards, that is a bloodline child.
Yes.
Stepchildren, no. But you can leave the stepchildren, you just have to say it.
Yeah.
You have to say, I want this to, instead of saying per stirpes, it goes to the descendants, you say, if my son predeceases me, I want it to be divided among his children, and included in that group is Joey, the stepchild, or something like
Yes.
that. If you say it.
Yeah.
That's a good topic, so let me just finish that, because when people ask me, they'll ask me a question like, what happens if I pass away and when my children pass away, what happens then?
Right.
And I'll say, well, and I don't mean to give a smart aleck answer, flippant, I guess.
Right.
But the answer is, whatever you say happens. That's what happens. And you
Yeah.
have some choices. That one is called per stirpes. That's the Latin term for it. And that's the one that's in our
Yeah.
probate and trust code. And that's also the default if you don't say anything at all, if you're silent about it. If you just
Right.
say, I leave all my property to my 3 kids, a third each.
Yeah.
Don't say anything more. Now, if that situation comes up and one of them do predecease, Now we gotta fill that gap, because the instrument that I put together does not, it's silent on what happens if one predeceases.
Right.
So we go to the trust code, that fills the gap, and that, the gap filler, or the default value, is that per stirpes. It means, okay, it's
Yeah.
gonna look to see what children he has and divide it among them. But it doesn't have to be that. We got another one called per capita, which means let's say you got 3 children, and you say one of them passes away before you do. Well, then I want that child's share to go back in the pot and be divided among my then living children.
Right.
So now the 2 that are surviving will get a half. Now, some people choose that. So, I mean, that's a choice.
Right.
Now, there's advantages and disadvantages to both of them. The disadvantage to that one is it leaves any children of the deceased child out of the distribution.
Yeah.
But, sometimes people have a child that they know they're not gonna have any children for one reason or another, and so they say that, and you can be different for all kids. I could have different for all 3 kids.
Right.
I can say for this child, I'm pretty sure they're never gonna have any children, so I want his to be per capita and go to, if he passes away, I want it to go to the other named beneficiaries.
Yes.
If this one's got a family, they got children, I want it to go to their descendants. And a third one can be just to named people or organizations. So you could say, okay, if this person passes away, they were a vet, so I'd like it to go to the Wounded Warrior Foundation, or Totem
Right.
Towers, or one of those things that honor vets and stuff, or a charity organization, the
Yeah.
church, the Humane Society. There's all kinds of them. Whatever your passion is, you may want your share to go there.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So those are basically the 3 basic choices you get, but you do have a choice. There's nothing automatic about it. You can say what you want.
Yeah.
Now, the default one is that per stirpes, because it's the most common. People say, well, if my kid's not there to get it, I want to go to his kids.
Yeah.
That's just the most common one. That's why it's the default value. But it doesn't have to be. That's the point. It can be whatever you say it is.
That's
If you
amazing.
want to get real specific about it and divide it in many different, I had somebody that did just that if they predeceased, they divided among all kind of different people and organizations.
Wow.
And so,
I'm amazed really to think about, and I say think about it, how much thought really needs to go into this. And the consultation is something that seems to be incredibly necessary.
it's more thought than you think. Here's how I describe people to do it. I say, just in your mind, fast forward to the end, okay?
Yeah.
And tell me what you think would be the ideal situation. If you can fast forward to the end and your property is being given out, tell me what the ideal situation would look like to you. Now, I can put it in the language it needs to be, or we'll talk about a few things that we may need to talk about, because then that starts the what if. And I'm in the what if business,
Yeah.
So I wanted to go here. Well, what if?
Yeah, the what ifs. And I think I know the answer to this before I even ask it, but people are probably reluctant to do that fast forward. We don't want to think about that.
I mean, it forces you. I mean, I agree. It forces you to consider your own mortality. It's not a fun topic to talk about.
Yeah.
But I mean, rational people are rational, and
Yes.
our time here.
Yeah, it's limited.
Wearing this Earth suit, we call it, is finite.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a beginning and there's an end.
That's right.
Don't deceive yourself. But so you do have to do that. You do have to get over that block.
Yeah.
Just think about it.
Yeah.
And just that very thing I talked to you about. I always tell people this is a tough thing to think about. I'd like to say in this instrument, at least one step past your beneficiaries. If a child predeceases you, now that's not a fun topic, thinking about one of your kids that passes away before you do.
Yeah.
But I'd like to go at least one step past the primary beneficiaries,
Yeah.
So, and that's even harder to think of, in my opinion.
Yes. Yeah, it is. Very much so. But in order to protect your assets and the future of your family's assets, it's something that you should consider very seriously.
Yeah, I mean, because everybody works hard all their life. I mean,
Yeah.
I know what the American worker. I mean, it's the very backbone of the country, and these people, all of us are in that boat. We spend time, we work, we save. Some people sacrifice a lot to save, and then they finally buy your house, or your land, or you buy acreage to farm and do whatever you do. I mean, everybody's wealth is their wealth.
Yeah.
Some have more, some have less, but your wealth is your wealth, and it's very important to you because it doesn't matter how much it is in dollars and cents. It's very important to you because it's your blood, sweat, and tears getting there.
Yeah.
And it's what you spent your life accumulating, and it's what you did. And you did it for several reasons. One, you do it to have a comfortable life while you're earning it. Two, you do it so you you want a comfortable life once you hit retirement years.
Yeah.
And the income becomes limited now. And three, it's nice that if you have any left over, when you're gone, that you can help your kids out, or whoever your heirs are, but you want to pass it on to what we call subsequent generations, so pass it on to somebody else.
Yeah.
And most people want to do that,
Yeah.
if they have it.
Well, I would certainly advise it. I've learned so much in knowing that we could prepare for things like this and make some good decisions about our future. I was talking to someone just yesterday. I think this is kind of funny. We were talking about, he was talking about getting his gutters cleaned.
Okay.
And he said, I don't want to pay for something that I can do for myself.
Yep.
Well, here's my thought process on that. At my age,
And you're young.
the potential of a hospital bill is a whole lot more than I'll pay somebody to clean my gutters.
Well, that's true.
So I'm thinking I'll make a good decision here and have someone with the skills and the know-how and a lot younger to do a job like that, because I might save some money, but by cleaning my own gutters, but also may cost myself a lot.
It could. I'll tell you what, about somewhere around 12 years ago, I fell off a ladder.
Yes,
It was somewhat of a, it's an experience.
I mean, it could happen to anybody. I understand that.
And it's not it was a life, not altering, but it was, if I ever review my life, that's one of the things at the top of the list is what things I don't
want to do that again.
It's not that I don't go up on a ladder, but I don't ever want to have that happen again.
Yeah,
That was not a fun time, so.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, and it can happen anytime, and, as you get, like we are in advanced years, you start, you still like to do stuff,
Yeah.
but sometimes you do things a little smarter.
Oh, yeah.
I had a chiropractor one time, he said something I've always remembered. He said, bend smart, lift smart.
Bend smart and lift
I mean,
smart.
if I'm in,
Yes.
if I'm in this studio here,
Yeah.
and I drop, I don't know, my pencil or something on the floor,
Yeah.
if I can bend over and pick that pencil up by keeping this hand on the counter and supporting myself as I bend down and pick it up, that's a smart way to lift.
Yeah.
Bend over and pick it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's when you're out there and you say, I get this transmission in the middle of the floor, it's in the way, I gotta move it, there's nobody around, I'm just gonna pick this son of a gun up and
Yeah,
move it. And
yeah.
you do, and it's, the next thing you know, you hurt yourself.
Yeah.
Just be smart about it. Now if you're 35 years old, pick the thing up, throw it over your shoulder, carry it out to the barn. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Well, that's what we're saying.
Age,
Well, that's what we're saying here is we have an opportunity to be a little smarter with our future
Yep.
and our family's future that goes beyond us.
and it's frustrating to have to do that, but you have to be
Yeah.
smart. You have to do it, but it makes sense. You
Absolutely.
have to take care of yourself. So like you said, if you don't get up and ladder and clean the gutters, then it's one of those things. It's worth it, whatever what the cost is.
Yeah. Well, we've been listening to
Yeah.
Stan Pierchoski, that's Bulletproof Estate Planning. I want to give the seminar information and contact information while we got a couple of minutes left.
Yeah, well, if you want to call my office at all, of course, Pierchoski Estate Law, Pierchoski Elder Law. Phone number is 931-363-7222, 363-7222. You can go to my website, which is estateplanstan.com, and there you can look at information I have there, or call me or send me a question by email, or you can look at my calendar and you'll see that the next place I'm going to be publicly speaking is at our seminar here at WLX radio station on September the 20th, which is a Saturday. We'll do that at 10 o'clock. It's called Wills, Trust in the Nursing Home. If you want to hear about some really good stuff and options you probably not have heard about before, that's a good place to come.
Yeah, absolutely free, no pressure, no
No,
obligation. Good information will help you and your family make some great decisions regarding you and your family's future.
We even
and-
have some refreshments
and the future wealth of your family,
Yeah.
which is important to us all. That's right.
We even have some refreshments there.
That's right. Stan Pierchoski, everybody, at Pierchoski Estate Law, located on the square in Pulaski, Tennessee, next to the Star Theater right
That's
there.
right there.
And you can't miss it, and you can enjoy the square there too while you
That's
take a
right.
visit. Thanks for being here with me, old buddy.
Always a pleasure.
We'll be here next week, next Friday.
For the next episode of Bulletproof Estate Planning.
Good Lord willing. We'll see you then.
Okay.
Bank Communications.
That went fast.
America's safety is not negotiable.
There we
I'm
go.
Dave.